Alright guys, so we have covered area of triangles where we looked at just regular triangles, equilateral triangles, and we just practiced with those. We are now going to keep doing triangles, but we're also going to add in some of our quadrilaterals. Today we'll be talking about squares, rectangles, parallelograms, and trapezoids. First, before we do get into the new stuff, I do want you to try these 3 problems. I'm asking you to find the area for the following triangles. This is what we went over in the last video. So go ahead and pause the video, see if you can work it on your own, and then I'll come back and I will show you how to work them just so you can check your answers. So remember, I do have a formula where the area is equal to 1/2 the base times the height, or you can use area is base times height divided by 2. They both mean the same thing. But we have to use this only when there is a height that creates this 90-degree angle and we're given the base. So when I look here, 6 goes from the top of the triangle to the bottom. It creates the 90-degree angle, so I know 6 is my height. But when I look at the bottom, which is where our base should be, I'm given 2 numbers. We did a problem like this in our assignment from last week. Remember, you have to add these together to get the entire base. When I add these together, I get 8. So I know that my height is 6 and my base is 8. I can now take the formula, plug it in, and find my area. So I'm going to take my area where A is equal to the base times the height. So A equals, my base is 8, so I have 8 times 6. And remember, we're going to divide that by 2. So our 8 times 6 gives us 48 divided by 2. And 48 divided by 2 is 24. So my area of this triangle is 24. So the second triangle is a little more straightforward. It's just a plain right triangle. So again, I'm still using the formula. A is equal to base times height divided by 2. In this case, remember, your height goes from the top of the triangle to the bottom, and it intersects with that base at a 90-degree angle. So when I look at this, my area equals, I know the bottom leg is my base, so 3 times my height, which is 4, and I'm still going to divide it by 2. 3 times 4 gives me 12, divided by 2 should leave me with 6 for the area of this triangle. So this third example, area equals base times height divided by 2. If you look though, our height is actually outside of our original triangle. That's because our original triangle isn't right. So when I do this, my base is still the bottom leg, which is 8. And now I'm going to take it times the height. And if you look, 7 is now our height. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide it by 2 still. So when I plug that in, I get 56 on top divided by 2. And I end up with the area for this triangle being 28. So those 3 problems, remember, were from last week's video. So if you're still confused on that, go ahead and give that another watch. If you're still having questions, make sure you do attend one of my office hours this week. We can talk about them, do some extra problems, but make sure you're on the right track. So on to the new stuff. We are still talking about area, but we're introducing new shapes. We're going to start with parallelogram. So I give you the formula for the area of a parallelogram is B times H. So remember, that A still stands for area here. The B is the base or the bottom, and the H is the height. So it's still similar to the triangles where we have the base and the height, but this formula isn't divided by 2. It is really important to remember that a parallelogram is just a shape, a polygon with 2 sets of parallel sides. So in that, the first one we're going to talk about is the square. Remember, your square has all 4 sides, the same length, and it also has 4 right angles. In this, technically you have the base on the bottom and the height on the side still, but remember, those 2 numbers are going to be the exact same because it is a square. The second parallelogram we're going to deal with is the rectangle. This one's a little different because it does not have 4 equal sides like the square, but it does have the bottom base and the height. And remember, those sides across from each other, those are the equal ones as well. Now, those 2 did have right angles. You also will have a general parallelogram. You still have your base on the bottom, but your height, you now have to create that right angle on the inside to find your height. They're also going to be parallelograms. They're a little skinnier standing up. But to find your height, you are going to have your right triangle on the outside. So your height's on the outside, your base is on the bottom. These four are the most common parallelograms we are going to deal with. We'll do a few examples so you can see. You do need to keep in mind your Pythagorean theorem, your trig identities, anything really we've done so far to help solve for side lengths of right triangles is fair game. For these next four examples, we are going to deal with parallelograms, and I'm going to ask you to find the area. So remember, our general equation is area is base times height. So I'm asking you to find that area. Now here, my base is usually on the bottom. I don't have anything labeled there, but you need to remember, on your rectangle, the sides across from each other are equal in length. So because the top is 4, I know the bottom is 4. And because the left is 3, the right is also 3. So in this situation, my base is 4 and my height is 3. It's just multiplication, so 4 times 3 is 12. So now I know my area of this rectangle is 12. Example 2 is a square. So again, area equals base times height. I label one side as 7, and because it's a square, I know all 4 sides are 7. So my area, I take the base, which is 7. I multiply it by the height, which is also 7. And I find that my area of this square is 49. Example 3 is a general parallelogram. So area equals base times height. This is one where the height is already given to you. They tell you, or they show you, I show you, that there is the right triangle on the inside. So my base is on the bottom. It's 7. And the height is right here. It is the height of that triangle, and it is 10. So my area is 7 times 10, and my area of this parallelogram is 70. Now you're probably thinking these are all super simple, and that's why I give you example 4. Remember, area is base times height. You need to make sure you are right in your formula so you know 1, what's given, and 2, what you're looking for. So remember, I told you to associate base with the bottom, but if you look here, I'm given 2 numbers. I'm given 6 and I'm given 3. But 3 is a dashed line, so we are not going to combine it with our 6. So I know my base for this problem is 6. I'm needing to find the height of this parallelogram, and in this picture, I drew it on the outside for you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that triangle and I'm going to draw it separately so we can look at it. I have 3 at the bottom, and I have 5 as a hypotenuse. Hopefully you do recognize that this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but if you don't, I am going to show you how to find that. Remember, if you are given sides of the triangle and no angles, we can't do anything with trig, but we can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember, your a and your b do not matter. I can do a for 3, I can do 4 for b, but your c has to be the longest side. It has to be the hypotenuse across from the right angle. So when I plug this in, I have 3 squared plus b squared equals 5 squared. It comes out to 9 plus b squared equals 25. I then have b squared is equal to, I subtract 9 from both sides, so I end up with 16. And when you take the square root of both sides, you end up with b as 4, which is what we found earlier. Keep your triples in mind, they will come in handy. So we did just find that the height of that triangle is 4, so the height of my parallelogram is also 4, which means 6 times 4 gives me 24, which is the area of our parallelogram. So those are the 4 examples we're going to do now for parallelogram. You will have an assignment where you'll practice more, but make sure you do have these basics down. If you don't, send me a text or remind on Google Classroom, because now I'm going to move on to trapezoids. So we are moving on to the area of trapezoids now. It's still 4 sides, so it still is a quadrilateral. I gave you 2 formulas here because sometimes the 1/2 throws all of you off, so I gave you an alternate. The first formula, the area. So remember, your A is always going to stay area, and that's in the first formula and the alternate formula as well. After A, it's equal to 1/2, and I have B1 plus B2. What these are the 2 bases. So B1 is base 1 and B2 is base 2. And then still we have it multiplied by h, which is our height. Now the alternate formula I gave you, you have area is equal to, and you take the 2 bases, base 1 and base 2 still. So base 1, base 2, and you add the bases together, you divide it by 2, and whatever that gives you, you then go and multiply it by the height. Both formulas will give you the same answer, it's just what you prefer to use. So there are 2 or 3 different drawings you can use for a trapezoid. You do have your general trapezoid. Excuse my drawings. This time the height is on the inside. We create that right angle like we did with the parallelograms. Base 1 I'm just going to put at the top, base 2 at the bottom. You could also have a trapezoid that looks something like this. You do have a right angle right there, so that means that side to the left is your height, and again base 1 at the top, base 2 at the bottom. So different renditions of these will be used, but these are your general drawings for trapezoids. So I do have 2 examples for you, and since I gave you 2 different formulas, I'm going to use one formula per example. So I have area is equal to 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So always with your pictures, you need to identify what is what. So it's easy because I have this dashed line here. I know my height is 3. I see 7 on the top, 9 on the bottom as my bases. It doesn't matter which one is base 1, base 2. I usually do base 1 as the top, base 2 as the bottom, but they'll both get you the right answer. I am now going to go ahead and start plugging in. So area is equal to 1/2 of my base 1 is 7 plus my base 2 is 9 times my height, which is 3. You do need to keep your PEMDAS in mind here. So 1/2, I'm going to do my parentheses first. 7 plus 9 gives me 16. And then I still have that times 3 on the outside. 1/2 times 16 is 8. And 8 times 3 gives me 24. So the area of my trapezoid here is 24. Example 2, I'm going to use area is equal to base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. And then we're going to multiply that by the height. So again, the first thing is to identify all of my missing information or my information piece by piece. I have this 6 up top, but on the bottom I have a 3 and a 9. If you look, this is all on the bottom of the trapezoid. It's solid, so I'm going to add them together and get my other base as 12. So 6 is my base 1, 12 is my base 2. Now I am missing my height, and if you look here, you have this triangle drawn for you already. Again, the bottom of the triangle is 3, the hypotenuse is 5, so using your triples or the Pythagorean theorem, you should find that the missing side of the right triangle is 4, which ends up being your height for the trapezoid. So now that I have my 2 bases and my height, I'm going to plug into the formula. Base 1 is 6 plus base 2 is 12. Remember, we're going to divide that by 2 and then multiply times our height, which is 4. So 6 plus 12 gives me 18 divided by 2 times 4. 18 divided by 2 is 9, still times 4. And 9 times 4 gives me 36. So I know the area of this trapezoid is 36. So I do, of course, have an assignment that goes along with this. It gives you extra practice on everything I've done today, as well as the stuff we've done last week. I will post it on Google Classroom. It's a little different than what we did last week, so I will have another video with instructions so you know how to access and turn the assignment in. Remember, I do have office hours. I will post those shortly because they have changed. But if you have any questions over this, if you're confused, send me a text or remind. I can go over it during office hours. Or if you just have a simple question, I can answer it through Remind or Google Classroom. I hope you have a great week. I will have the second video for this week posted on Tuesday, so keep an eye out for that.